What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Ross Reviews, where today we're doing an Aussie Ute battle. This is a 2010 FPV F6 310. And over here we've got a 2010 HSV Maloo. LS power versus the Turbo Barra. Let's get into it. Now, just quickly, I want to say a huge thank you to the local subscriber who came down in his F6 310 today, and also to Westside Autos for allowing me to take out their VE Maloo. This particular one is for sale at their dealership, and a link is in the description below. So let's get back into this comparison. Now let's just go over some of the facts on these two Utes, because surprisingly, on paper, they're pretty damn similar. Now this F6 310, these guys were launched in 2008 up to 2014. They've got the 4-liter inline-6 Turbo Barra engine, and this thing is just a torque monster. 310 kilowatts and over 565 Newton meters of torque. This thing does haul. This particular car, you could have got it as a ZF 6-speed or a 6-speed manual. It weighs roughly 1,700 kilos. The HSV over here, these things were produced from 2007 till 2013, so basically the same timeline. It's got a 6.2-liter LS3 engine, naturally aspirated V8, makes about 317 kilowatts and about 550 Newton meters of torque. Also available in a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed auto. And this thing also weighs about 1,700 kilos. Built in Clayton, Victoria, and built in Campbellfield, Victoria, and they were both running a pretty similar price tag when new, about 65 grand. Both of these Utes are done in the automatic variant, so they are equal, and both of these Utes have 0 modifications, so 100% stock. This is going to be a fair test. Let's spin these Utes around and hear how they sound. All right, now starting in the F6 310 Ute here, this is an absolute favorite of mine. You know how much I love a good F6, and just looking at this particular one, it is in immaculate condition. You know, we're talking 70,000 Ks on this, totally factory, and just held to such a high standard. You know, these are just such a mean looking Ute as well from the front end. You know, it is a little bit basic and understyled at the rear, but just the aggressive face. You've got that big cutout for the intercooler. Under that bonnet, you know, that 4-liter straight 6 Turbo Barra. The FG variants as well, it's the best engine. It really is. And, you know, just the fact you can make stupid power out of this thing with some bigger injectors and a tune, it's ridiculous. Just coming around these corners here, this is a nice tight hairpin here, and this is probably one of the biggest negatives with this Ute, is just the fact that it does have leaf springs in the rear. So it's not coils all around like it is in the Maloo, and you know, this is a Ute at the end of the day, and Ford never really changed all that much in the rear end from any other Utes they designed. So essentially it's the same. Now in this particular Ute, we are running the ZF 6-speed, which if you are after all-out speed, and that is the best asset in these Turbo Barras, you're going to want that ZF 6-speed, because it is just so quick to shift, it's smooth, it knows what it's doing, you put it in performance mode, and it's just a great, great gearbox. And it's just amazing, again, even just there, how smooth that ZF is. You know, there's no clunks, there's no like harsh changes, and it just drops down so quickly, and it is off. And when that when you're in boost and this thing is just climbing on that RPM band, you know, look, you don't even feel the gear changes. It's that smooth. It's really impressive. It is. And just sitting inside this F6, you can just tell straight away from the Maloo, this really doesn't have quite as a premium feel. You know, you do have a little infotainment system up here, but it is very basic. You know, we don't have any EDI track apps or anything like there is in the Maloo. We don't even have, you know, boost pressure gauges up there and oil pressure like you normally would in the previous generations in the F6 Typhoons and stuff. You do have a boost gauge in the gauge cluster, but it is kind of like an afterthought. You know, you really would have liked to have seen something up here mounted by FPV. It is a bit unfortunate they didn't do that. However, you do get your red start stop button, which does give it a kind of cool feel, and you also have your build number next to that. The seats are quite comfortable. You know, they do have F6 embroidered into the back of them. These particular ones are just cloth, but here in Australia, I kind of prefer them because they do not get as hot. They show less wear as well. Now, some complaints people have about these is obviously they don't sound all that great. You know, some people do compare them to a vacuum cleaner or something, but a V10 Dyson. But look, at the end of the day, you can put good exhaust on these, and I have done quite a few of them that sound very meaty, very good and aggressive. But you got to put, you know, just your flair on it and modify it. And at the end of the day, that's what these Turbo Barras were really designed for. You know, they're just such a good platform to build on. And to see this one not built on is really something you hardly ever see. Now, 0 to 100, guys, this is what we've all been waiting for here. Stock example F6310 here. ZF, we reset the draggy. And we're just gonna leave it in performance mode, build the revs up a little bit, and then just take off. So, here we go. Ooh, low, traction kicked on. And we're already at well over 100. This thing is, you have that slight little bit of lag at the beginning, and then once the boost hits, traction control really has to kick on, and this thing just takes off. 0 to 100 there, guys, was done in 5.49 seconds. I believe this thing would have been claimed somewhere around the low fives, like 5.1. This does have a bigger turbo, remember, so it doesn't spool up quite as quickly as the XR6 Turbo does, but that's still a pretty impressive time for a stock car, and we do have the owner sitting next to us as well, so it isn't just me in here. Now, in the HSV Maloo here, just getting onto it a bit, and mate, when it kicks down, it kicks down. Now, this thing, it definitely sounds very raspy, throaty, mean, aggressive when you really start laying into this thing. But straight away, the biggest negative I'm going to tell you right now is the 6-speed automatic, because it's just definitely not as smooth as the ZF. It's still good. It's still set up in the right way. So, you know, you pull down on it to go up a gear, you push it up to go down a gear. All that is really good. But at the end of the day, when you got a V8, rear wheel drive, you're in a Ute, you want this to be a manual. And if it ain't, it just ain't. It's just not right. It's criminal in my books. And straight away, jumping into this HSV Maloo, look, you can definitely tell this feels more premium. You know, you've got these beautiful leather bucket seats. They've got Maloo embroidered in the back of them. Quite comfortable, supportive. You know, they are still built for a bigger person, though, I will say that. So there's still a little bit of movement in the sides. The wheel is very big. It's almost too big. And overall feel, look, you still know what they're doing. But again, similar to the F6, it's a bit light, just a little bit too light in my books. Absolutely love the EDI track app. So this is without a doubt the best thing HSV came out with, and the fact that Ford did not match them on this is just a real kick in the pants to Ford fans everywhere, because the EDI track apps are just really, really cool. You know, they show what gear you're in, you know, your RPMs. You can go through about 10 or 12 different pages. You've got track timers, all these cool things. And unfortunately, you didn't have that in the FPVs. And just on the looks of this Maloo, it's in your face, it's aggressive, and I absolutely love this thing. You know, you've got those bonnet vents at the front, super aggressive. You got that daytime running light as well. It just looks mean. You know, even the wheels look very, very nice. You got big HSV branded brakes behind that, which is good, helps stop this thing. And it's just a sleek profile. And just coming into some of these corners here, this is, again, really where you get more of a benefit in this Maloo, because it is coils all around. It does not have a leaf sprung rear end, so it is much more stable in here in the corners. It's much more comfortable as well. You know, if I'm being honest, the FPV, it's not that bad, but this is more comfortable. It just definitely is. And again, it just isn't smooth when you put your foot down in this. It just, you know, even when you try and feather that power on, it really does hammer you down, and it can be quite jarring. It is a little bit unfortunate, that. Now, 0 to 100, I'm actually not sure what these Maloos got. I'm going to assume it's something similar to the F6, so I would guess somewhere around that 5-second range. We are going to find out. We've got the Draggy, so we're up here on this back road. And remember, guys, if you are liking this content, please make sure you guys go ahead and hit that big red subscribe button. That really does help me out. Hit that like button as well. We've reset the Draggy. I'm going to just put it into performance shift mode like we did in that F6. And here we go. Reset the Draggy. There we go. And yeah, a little bit laggy actually on the takeoff there. And we did manage to keep traction to the ground. Huge thanks to those 2 7.5s at the rear. And let's have a look at what that time was. So there we have it. This is just slightly slower than that F6310. And, you know, look, if we really had these two cars out all day, we probably could go back and forth depending on how good of a launch we did. But I did give it 2 good tries there, and it did not beat the 5.49 that F6310 put down. So despite that F6 having smaller tires and losing a bit of traction, I really think this gearbox is just the weak point of this Maloo. You know, if it had a ZF in here, you know, this thing would be a boatload more faster. I just know it would be. And you really got to have a manual in here to really get the enjoyment out of that NA V8 up front.
So in the end, which Ute comes out on top? Simply put, both. And here's why. The Maloo is just a visual masterpiece. It sounds amazing, and paired with a 6-speed manual, this Ute is better than sex. The F6310 is Australia's own, and a tuner's wet dream. And if these things had wings, you would be taking off and touching down faster than a bloody Concorde. The only way anyone is truly winning this Aussie Ute battle is if they are lucky enough to own both in their driveway. Thanks for watching.